Broadcasting from the Vancouver Convention Center in British Columbia, Solutions Review is on location at the FME User Conference 2022, the peak of data integration, brought to you by Safe Software.
I'm Doug Atkinson, and we are back here at the FME User Conference 2022 in Vancouver, British Columbia, and we're joined by a couple of folks from Geographics, Inge van Daelen, GIS cartographer,
yes,
and Hans van der Maarel, the owner of Geographics.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Our pleasure.
Well, I think it's really interesting what you guys are doing with FME, and we were just talking about a little bit before we fired up the cameras, and I want you to walk us through it, because what you're doing is taking this whole integration to another level by integrating your cartography and ultimately any cartography into FME and being able to use mapping in integration. Am I even close to being correct with that?
That's pretty much it. So apart from FME, we're also a company that does cartography, the art of map making. And quite often we have projects, map-making projects, where we have to do a series of maps across a larger region, each of them with a slightly different area of interest. Now, in order to speed that up, in order to cut down on the boring parts of it, we can automate a lot of that process with FME. So we can process data with FME, we can get it ready, and then we can push it on automatically through an add-on to our other application, which is a plugin for Adobe Illustrator. So we get this great graphics environment, and we can feed it with dynamic data. And we can cut down map production time to, in some cases, seconds. And so this leaves us more time for the artistic bits of cartography. There's still some parts that cannot really be done automatically by computers, where a human touch is really still the best. And so by saving time for that, we allow ourselves to spend time on those fun bits, because that's really enjoyable.
Well, and so you've been a partner for a long time. So this is actually something that you've developed recently, but you've been a partner for a long time doing work with SAFE and FME.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you kind of came to know these guys and get involved.
I first got involved with FME when I was actually interning back in college, and I got to know the Dutch reseller for FME at the time, and I started working for him. So that was back in 1997. So back when you could still call Don and Dale directly, and or email them, and they would respond personally. And so I've seen it grow over the years. I started my own business, Geographics, almost 18 years ago, and I've been a partner of SAFE in one way or another for that entire period of time.
Yeah, it's great. Now, Inge, you're a cartographer, yes?
Yes.
So, and you're working with FME on other projects, is that correct?
yes.
So give us a little overview of kind of how you're working with FME around the mapping that you're doing.
Well, usually Hans makes the workspaces in FME and prepares the base data, and then I get to do the fun part. And I usually use FME for entirely different projects next to the map making.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
And how are you doing that?
Well, one of the assignments I've had is to build an FME workspace to build PDF reports.
Yep.
And they wanted quite a lot of things in it. So it became quite an extensive workspace. I also needed Hans's help, because I'm still learning as well. I am an FME professional, but I'm still fairly new to the field.
Well, so what do you see as the opportunity? I mean, it's interesting that you're filling a gap that actually doesn't exist currently in terms of the implementation you were just talking about. But what do you see? How did you get there? Like, what did you see? You were just confident that FME was going to be able to kind of do what you envisioned. I think it's
seeing opportunities and
right.
Being at the right place at the right time as well. And so within our geographic region, within the Netherlands, there's not a whole lot of companies who are good both on the FME side of things as well as on the graphical side of things when it comes to map production. And so there is actually a gap that I was able to position Red Geographics in.
Well, I think it's interesting as well that there's so much international partner presence at this event, and you guys are another good example of that. Why do you think that is? Particularly in Europe, why do you think there's so much traction for FME in Europe?
I think SAFE got a very strong foothold in Europe very early on. And I think SAFE has been developing relationships with partners in Europe, but really all over the world, which are very, very long lasting. So I've been around the partner network pretty much since 1997. And there's a lot of people that have been very consistent throughout that entire period of time. So there's people at other partners that I've been seeing sometimes for 2 decades at these events. And it is still very much about the people. So because it's so consistent, because it's so strong, we can actually build long-lasting relationships with other partners, help each other out where possible, share experiences, also share that with SAFE. And I think that's also the value of coming over for these events, is to meet up with my counterparts in other partner organizations.
Well, I wanted to talk about that for a little bit because it's been a couple of years since this event has been live.
Yes.
And as I was having lunch and breakfast this morning, sitting at a table, folks come up, they sit at the same table, completely random, and you end up having these valuable conversations that you wouldn't normally have, that you really can't recreate in a virtual environment. It's sorely missed, I think.
Absolutely.
This sort of organic learning that can happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm curious. How did you get through that whole pandemic? I mean, have you been doing? I'll ask you, Inge, have you been doing a lot of virtual communications, training, client interactions, or have you started to get back to kind of more of a normal?
I think we gave not that many online trainings. It is possible. We have done some, but we prefer to be in person.
Yeah,
and
right.
Our clients prefer in person as well. So we were lucky to have a big mapping project that required a lot of our time.
Yep.
So I was working from home, working on the maps. And after the pandemic, all our trainings were being planned in again because it was possible again. And since that time, we have been extremely busy with giving training in person. That's been a lot of fun, but it's also very busy.
Well, it's good to be busy.
Yeah, there's no time to be bored.
It was very scary there to be not busy a couple of years ago. I'm going to ask each of you this question, and feel free to answer it in any way you'd like. But what would you consider a good piece of advice to offer someone who is thinking about FME as an option for their data integration solution?
I think be curious is the advice I would like to give. Be curious to see if you can improve on processes. Don't just settle for it works. It could work better. Try and figure out why it's not working. Try and see beyond the facade and try and see what's happening under the hood, and try and get a good grasp on that.
And FME really provides you with some possibilities around those sorts of curious questions.
FME is basically one ginormous collection of tools to work with your data. But you have to know what you want to do to your data in order to be able to use FME correctly.
Inge, what advice would you offer?
Yeah, I'd say that's the thing. FME, if you work with data, you can use FME. But my advice is start small, because it can be very complex, it can be overwhelming. So if you do training, you have to keep working on it. But if you challenge yourself to reach certain goals, and you'll find that you are capable of reaching those goals, you want to continue. But don't be too hard on yourself if it doesn't work out right away, because you will fail multiple times, yeah. But you just have to start over and keep trying. Don't be afraid to try some things. You won't break it easily.
Excellent. Excellent advice. Well, thank you very much for coming by. Best of luck with presentation and the implementation as well. It sounds like an intriguing idea. And hope you have a great rest of the show and certainly a great rest of the year.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.